Hey guys, how's it going? It's Leon here. Today in this video, I'm going to talk about preventing overwhelm and stopping paralysis in action in such a way that it puts the whole thing into perspective. So in my last video, I talked about this very topic and I gave you a concrete tool to be able to help you to be able to do this in such a way that you could be able to tackle this thing that's causing you overwhelm one step at a time and reduce your anxiety. So in this video, I'm going to bring all what I said into context. The way to address something that is causing you overwhelm is to be able to start with something small because we see the whole entire task in front of us like it's this really big, overwhelming mountain that we have to climb. And that paralyzes us. It causes us to get stuck. So, in order to get started on the activity, you need to be able to frame it in such a way that it's less overwhelming. So, if you're standing before the activity, you think about all the things that you have to do, it's going to feel like it's too much to do. So, what you do is that you try to find a small way to help you to get into the activity itself. I want to introduce you to an idea called the mini habit that could really put this into perspectives. So when it comes to mini habit, you focus on the minimum you could do to change something. So say you want to tackle this really big task, but what happens? We get so stressed out looking at the whole entire thing, we end up going back into our default state, the things that we've been doing before, the things that are our habits, and we are afraid to try something new because it seems too big to us. So you want to make it so that when you get started on the activity that it's small so that you don't overwhelm your whole entire brain. So you focus on the minimum you could do to change something. So I'll give you an example. So say if someone has not exercised before and then they want to go to the gym, they might tell themselves, I'm going to go to the gym 40 minutes, 3 times a week. And what happens? They never get around to doing it, right? That it doesn't happen. So what do you do then? You want to find the minimum that they could do, something that is so small it seems kind of ridiculous. And I'm going to let you know why this thing that does not seem it should be helpful to you is actually really helpful. It could be like this. They go to that gym and they stay there for 5 minutes and then they come back, right? Going to the gym for 5 minutes is not going to make you strong and healthy. But the thing is, you're reducing all the pressure you have around starting that activity. You're keeping it very minimal. You say to yourself, I'm going to go to that gym for at least 5 minutes. And that's not going to seem like it's much. It's something that you're reducing that initial hurdle it takes for you to get into the activity itself. I'll give you another example. So, concerning exercise, if you never get around to exercise, why don't you do one push up a day? Sounds pretty ridiculous, right? But the whole thing is that it's breaking you out of your default system because every day you never find time to do your exercises. You'll always find some sort of excuse, some mental excuse, and you're not even consciously doing it. You're basically on automatic pilot. So what you do is you just do one push-up a day, and if you do just one push-up, you could consider that a success. So the thing is, that's something that's pretty doable. So you do that one push-up and you find that you're already on the floor already. So I'm on the floor, I did one push-up, I might as well do more. So the thing is, you've breaking out of that default. And since you're already on the floor, you want to do more of the push-ups anyway. But remember, it's important to consider doing that one push-up to be the success. And the idea is that you're not going to just stay with this. Like every week from now on, you're just going to do one push-up. No, it's actually, you want to increase afterwards. But the whole idea is to break out of the default system. So I'll give you an example. So for myself, I always tend to walk a certain kind of route. And then one day I said to myself, you know what, I should try a different route. I should just go on a completely different walking route. But the thing is, I never remembered, never remembered. So I'll remember halfway through my walk. I'll be like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing a different route, but I'm on this pathway anyway. Why don't I just finish it? And the next time I forget. The next time I forget. So one time I decided to do this mini habit idea. So I'm walking my usual old path, and then halfway through, I remember, oh, I'm supposed to do that new path. This whole thing sounds ridiculous now I'm talking about it. And so what I did is like I walked just 10 minutes in a different direction. So I went my usual route and walked 10 minutes in a different direction. And I went back to finish my old route again. And what that did was that broke my brain out of the old system, the default system. The next time I was able to take a new route. So the whole idea is to break out the default system. And it's important to view your default system, the habits that you go back to view it with non-judgment, because often it's because we're so critical of our default automatic pilot, we actually start to dissociate from it so that we actually end up engaging in the default automatic pilot more and more every single time. Because our brain, what happens is that we judge ourselves so harshly for it, we automatically have an ego defense by dissociating from the whole entire default state. And so we don't become aware of it. So the important thing to do is become consciously aware of your default state. Because when you become consciously aware of what gets you stuck in automatic pilot, just observe it with curiosity, like you are a curious scientist looking at yourself. When you could do that, then you could start to make changes in your life. You get to see, oh, this is how I normally go about my day. And just view it with curiosity, view it with non-judgment. And then when you do that, you're able to make changes. So I want to give you another analogy here. Is about the rubber band. So you imagine you have a rubber band and you want to make the rubber band looser. So this is going to be a great analogy to help you illustrate what it takes to be able to transform yourself. And it really starts with one small step at a time. Because say that you want to have this rubber band and you want to make it loose. If you just pull on it, it's going to snap, right? So you want to stretch the rubber band a little bit and then let it go back to its default state. Stretch it, let it go back to its default state. Stretch it. So go back and forth. Eventually, you'll get a loose rubber band. So for you, when you want to make changes in your life, you're not going to just have it done overnight. But if you do, it's going to be an incredible stress on your system. So you want it to do is you want to stretch yourself and go back to your default state. Stretch yourself to go back to your default state, your automatic pilot state, because you need to rest from making changes. But it's important to keep one-minded and focused on making the changes that you want to change. Otherwise, there's no commitment, right? So you do go through this whole process, but remember to commit to it. And it's important, again, not to judge your default system, because if you judge your automatic pilot, every single time you go back, you're going to be so harsh on yourself. You're not going to continue on this whole entire process. So same thing with doing a split. So you're not going to do a split overnight, right? That's crazy. So you want to stretch and you want to rest. You want to stretch and want to rest. You want to stretch and and eventually you get to that split, right? So I'll give you another example with Russian fighters versus American fighters. I found this one to be really, really fascinating, in which the idea is why are Russian MMA fighters the best in the world? American fighters, they practice pretty hard. So they would go all out in their practice. They would put all their energy into it until they're exhausted. Well, the issue is that if you do that, if you go all out when you practice, the next time you show up to practice, the next day, you're not going to have that much energy, because you already kind of burnt out yourself. You burn out your system. So you can't really go all out again. You can't really practice your skills pretty well in that kind of state. The Russian fighters, they don't go all out when they fight. They kind of start off sparring in a rather playful kind of manner. And then they save their like all out fights when perhaps when it gets closer to the actual fight that they need to fight, but they don't go all out. And when they don't go all out, they could practice more because the next time they go to the gym and they practice, they're not completely exhausted. They could really focus on building their skills, and then they could practice more consistently, and through practice effects, they're able to become really, really good fighters. The same thing here. If you want to change yourself, if you try to force yourself to change all at once, you're going to exhaust yourself. So really make small changes, but be focused and continue on making the changes. The next thing I want to talk to you here about making changes in your life is that so often people tell me this. So I present a lot of psychotherapy tools or life coaching tools to people. And I run workshops when it comes to providing these kind of tools. And some people come to me as like, there's all these tools and they're all like really helpful, but it's a lot to keep in mind all at once, right? Because every week there's new tools. So I tell them that it's important. You don't have to work on all your tools all the time. In fact, you could, after you focus working on a specific tool and you hone that tool, you could kick it to the back of your mind. So you could actually trust your unconscious to process the material that you've learned. So people think that every single week, anything that they learn, like a new book that they have picked up, like a self-help book, for example, or a book on philosophy, they have to like actively keep everything in mind that they've learned in their conscious and actively consciously work on these things. But that's way too much. That's going to be overwhelming to you. That what's going to be helpful for you is to work on one tool at a time. And then after you've honed up to a certain degree, just let it go. Just kind of let it sit in the back of your mind. Because if you are not working on it consciously, it doesn't mean that you're not working on it at all. Your brain's going to start processing it, but using different areas of your brain rather than your frontal lobe. So as you work on new tools, the old tools are going to be back there, and your brain is still working on it. And you find that when you come back to using that old tool, you're actually going to be better at it after you take a break from it. When you take a break from that old tool, psychological tool that you use, you come back to it, you're going to be better at it. So you don't need to put all your effort in your conscious mind. So a lot of writers tell me, for example, when they write and all the time, it's good to have a good writing habit, but it's really when they have a good writing habit, first of all, that's important to establish, but then they take a break from writing. When they come back to writing again, they find that their writing quality improves. And that's because the brain is working on it at an unconscious level in the back of their brain. I just want to let you know that I've written an article called What Makes Rewiring Depression, Anxiety, and Other Emotional States Possible. And I really believe from my own experience with depression and anxiety, and also working with people with depression and anxiety, that it's very possible to change the brain and get out of this default state that we may have of depression and anxiety or anything else that we may have. And just like what I've talked about today, that over time you could actually make tangible changes. If you want to check out the article, I have it down below in the description box. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, got something out of it, you could give it a like and also subscribe.